Every morning, billions of people wake up, and the first thing they do is reach for their smartphones. News feeds, notifications, likes, a familiar ritual of digital communion. But behind these simple gestures lies an invisible reality. We are not just consuming information, we are becoming participants in a massive emotional experiment. Algorithms study every one of our actions, the time spent on a post, the scrolling speed, the pauses between clicks. They create detailed maps of our emotional reactions, forming digital twins of our feelings. This is why two people opening the same platform see completely different worlds. Their digital spaces are already tuned to a specific emotional response. We have found ourselves in an era where technology doesn't just reflect our feelings, but actively shapes them, creating feedback loops that subtly alter our perception of reality. Digital platforms have become the invisible architects of our emotional landscape. And understanding this is the first step towards conscious existence in a new world of feelings. Hidden behind every click and swipe is a complex system capable of reading emotional states with astonishing accuracy. Modern algorithms are not just code. They are subtle tools for emotional analysis, operating on machine learning principles. They continuously collect vast amounts of data: video viewing duration, pauses between actions, frequency of returning to specific content. But their capabilities don't stop there. Our devices have transformed into sensitive sensors. Smartphones record screen press force, smartwatches track heart rate, cameras analyze micro-expressions of the face. These seemingly disparate signals combine to form a detailed map of emotional reactions. Algorithms recognize moments of joy, sadness, irritation, or surprise with an accuracy that sometimes surpasses the abilities of close acquaintances. The most striking thing is that they learn to predict our emotions, forming personalized emotional landscapes. When you experience a surge of enthusiasm from a recommended video or post, it's not a coincidence. It's the result of a meticulous analysis of your digital emotional footprint. Platforms create unique emotional profiles, tailoring content to your preferences and moods. This is how the invisible architectural constructs of our feelings are formed. Some emotional states are amplified, others dulled, and still others arise in response to specific triggers. Our brain is an amazingly plastic structure, capable of changing under the influence of experience. This ability, called neuroplasticity, takes on new meaning in the digital age. Every hour spent on social media, every short video watched, every notification. All of this doesn't just take up time, but literally rewires the neural connections in our brain. Algorithms create an ideal environment for the formation of new neural pathways associated with specific emotional responses. When we receive a like or a comment, dopamine, a neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward, is released in the brain. Gradually, stable dopamine loops are formed, compelling us to return to the source of pleasure again and again. Streaming services that automatically start the next episode, social platforms with endless scrolling, all of them exploit this feature of our brain, reprogramming the reward system. Research shows that prolonged exposure to digital algorithms changes not only our habits, but also the very structure of the brain. Areas responsible for concentration shrink, while centers associated with rapid switching and multitasking expand. The developing brains of adolescents are particularly vulnerable, where neural connections are formed with increased intensity. Digital platforms create conditions for the reinforcement of certain emotional patterns: anxious news scrolling, dependence on social approval, fear of missing out. But the same brain plasticity also gives us the opportunity to consciously form beneficial neural connections. using digital tools to develop positive emotional skills. Behind the pleasant facade of digital platforms lies a disturbing reality: the systemic use of algorithms to create emotional dependencies. This technology is not accidental but meticulously engineered. The mechanism is simple and ruthless. Platforms identify our emotional vulnerabilities and methodically exploit them. Research shows that algorithms can detect moments of psychological weakness, fatigue, loneliness, anxiety, and precisely then offer content that elicits the strongest emotional response. For example, individuals showing signs of depression are more frequently shown material that reinforces a negative worldview. This creates a vicious cycle. The worse a person feels, the deeper they immerse themselves in content that amplifies this state. Teenagers are particularly vulnerable. Their developing psyche becomes an ideal target. Over the past 2 decades, anxiety levels among young people have risen by 70%, correlating with the increased use of social platforms. But emotional manipulations extend far beyond psychological well-being. They become a tool for political and commercial influence. Algorithms have learned to determine a user's emotional profile and select content most likely to alter their behavior in the desired direction, from purchasing a product to voting for a specific candidate. This invisible architecture of influence is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Platforms deliberately create states of emotional imbalance, from mild anxiety to a sharp sense of social rejection, only to then offer temporary relief through specific actions. This is a classic scheme for addiction formation, transferred to the digital world and scaled to billions of users. In a world where digital technologies are often blamed for negative effects on the psyche, there is also another side: positive emotional programming. Modern applications and platforms can become powerful allies in developing our emotional intelligence and forming healthy psychological habits. This is not a utopia, but a reality confirmed by many successful examples. Take meditation and mindfulness apps. They use the same principles of algorithmic learning, but direct them towards strengthening mental health. These systems track user progress, adapt practices to their specific needs, and create a support regimen that forms stable neural connections of calm and focus. Cognitive behavioral therapy platforms go even further. They analyze user thought patterns and offer personalized strategies for transforming negative thoughts into constructive ones. The results in working with anxiety disorders are particularly impressive. Some digital programs show efficacy comparable to traditional therapy. Interactive social situation simulators help develop empathy and emotional intelligence in a safe environment. Users learn to recognize other people's emotions, practice complex communication skills, and receive immediate feedback. Artificial intelligence becomes a sensitive mentor, noting micro-expressions and suggesting optimal emotional responses. It is important to understand, technologies themselves are neutral. Their impact is determined by the intentions of their creators and the awareness of users. When digital tools are designed with the goal of supporting mental well-being, they transform into powerful catalysts for personal growth. In this context, emotional programming ceases to be a threat and becomes a path to a deeper understanding of oneself and others. Imagine a world where your digital assistant not only answers queries, but senses your mood and helps you cope with emotional problems. This world is already upon us. Artificial intelligence is rapidly mastering the role of a digital therapist, analyzing voice tone, word choice, and even typing rhythm. Modern algorithms can detect the first signs of depression long before a person realizes the problem themselves. Psychological support chatbots are becoming the first line of help for millions of people who lack access to traditional therapy. They operate around the clock, don't suffer emotional burnout, and don't pass judgment. AI-based cognitive behavioral therapy systems are already showing impressive results in treating anxiety disorders and phobias. They track user thought patterns and offer personalized exercises to change destructive thought schemes. However, digital therapy has its limitations. Algorithms currently lack the depth of empathetic understanding inherent to humans. They cannot fully account for cultural context and a patient's life experience. Ethical questions also arise. Who is responsible for the decisions of an AI therapist? How can the confidentiality of the most intimate mental health data be ensured? Despite these challenges, the potential of digital therapy is enormous. In a world where over half of people with mental disorders do not receive the necessary help, algorithmic solutions can become a bridge to a healthier society. They make psychological support accessible to those living in remote areas, unable to afford expensive consultations or fearing stigmatization. The future of mental health will likely be hybrid. Human therapists will work in tandem with artificial intelligence, using its analytical capabilities for more accurate diagnosis and personalized treatment. In a world where digital technologies permeate all spheres of our lives, emotional resilience becomes not just a desirable, but a necessary survival skill. We live in a constant information storm, where algorithms continuously compete for our attention, manipulating emotional responses. How can we maintain inner balance in these conditions? The answer lies in developing new adaptive mechanisms. The key skill of the digital age is mindfulness. This is the ability to notice how technologies affect our emotional state in real time. When we begin to recognize moments when an algorithm tries to elicit a certain reaction, we regain control. Practicing regular digital breaks helps restore the brain's natural rhythms and strengthen neural connections responsible for self-regulation. Critical thinking becomes a shield against manipulation. Ask questions. Why exactly is this content appearing in my feed? What emotion is it trying to evoke? Who benefits from my reaction? This habit of reflection creates a protective filter between you and algorithmic influences. It is also important to develop emotional literacy, the ability to accurately identify your feelings and understand their sources. Digital platforms often mix real emotions with artificially created ones, blurring the boundaries of our perception. The ability to distinguish authentic experiences from algorithm-provoked reactions helps maintain psychological autonomy. Equally important is to form conscious digital habits, setting time limits for device usage, creating tech-free zones, and regularly practicing digital detoxification. These simple strategies strengthen our ability to resist negative programming and maintain control over our own emotional landscape. Little fingers confidently glide across the bright tablet screen. The 3-year-old's eyes are wide open, the brain actively absorbing every sound, color, and movement. At this moment, neural connections are forming that will stay with him for life. Digital devices have become an integral part of the modern generation's childhood, opening a new chapter in the history of human emotional development. A child's brain possesses exceptional plasticity. It forms connections 5 times faster than an adult's brain. This is why the impact of digital algorithms on children is particularly significant. Preschool applications don't just entertain. They program basic emotional responses that will shape their entire future life. When a child receives bright animation and sound encouragement for a correct action in an educational game, a connection is established in their brain between a specific behavior and a positive emotion. Repeating this experience thousands of times forms stable patterns of response. Some educational platforms use this mechanism to develop empathy and social skills, showing how virtual characters experience various emotions and inviting the child to recognize them and react appropriately. However, there is also a downside. Algorithms for children's content often exploit the natural craving for quick stimulation, fostering a dependence on vivid impressions and instant feedback. This can lead to difficulties with concentration in the real world, where rewards require patience and effort. Studies show that children who spend more than 2 hours a day in front of screens exhibit a reduced ability to recognize other people's emotions and self-regulate their own feelings. Parents and educators face a difficult choice. It's impossible and impractical to completely restrict digital experiences, but it's essential to learn how to guide them constructively. The key factor becomes shared technology use, where an adult helps the child make sense of the digital experience, connecting it with real emotions and situations. In a world where algorithms have learned to read our emotions, a fundamental question arises: who has the right to program human feelings? This dilemma extends far beyond technical capabilities, touching upon the very essence of human autonomy. When a platform subtly nudges a user towards a specific emotional state without asking for their consent, the line between personalization and manipulation becomes dangerously blurred. The problem is exacerbated by the opacity of algorithms. Most people are unaware of the extent of emotional influence they are subjected to. We find ourselves in a situation where our most intimate experiences become subjects of commercial exploitation without our informed consent. The principle of informed consent, which has been formed over centuries in medical ethics, is virtually absent in the digital environment. User agreements, written in legal jargon over dozens of pages, cannot be considered an adequate form of obtaining permission for emotional programming. Of particular concern is the question of responsibility. If an algorithm intensifies depressive states, leading to self-harm, who bears responsibility? The developer, the company, or the user themselves? These questions demand the creation of a new ethical paradigm that takes into account the unique features of digital impact. Principles of ethical algorithm design must include transparency of influence mechanisms, the ability to opt out of emotional programming, and regular independent audits of potential harm. The right to emotional autonomy, the ability to independently form one's feelings without hidden interference, is becoming one of the fundamental rights of the digital age, requiring protection at the legislative level. As the influence of digital platforms on our emotional state becomes increasingly apparent, there is a growing public demand for clear rules of the game in this area. We stand on the threshold of a new era of regulation, an era where the emotional impact of technologies is recognized as a significant factor requiring control and limitations. The European Union has already taken the first steps in this direction, including provisions in the General Data Protection Regulation concerning user profiling, including their emotional reactions. The Digital Services Act requires large platforms to conduct risk assessments of algorithmic systems, including their potential negative impact on mental health. In the United States, several states are considering bills that would oblige companies to disclose methods of emotional influence and obtain explicit user consent. Special attention is paid to the protection of children. California has already adopted the Age-Appropriate Design Code, prohibiting the use of dark patterns and manipulative techniques in applications for minors. Parallel to government regulation, industry self-regulation is also developing. Leading technology companies are establishing internal ethical committees, developing standards for algorithm transparency, and implementing tools that allow users to control the degree of emotional impact. Independent auditors are beginning to check systems for hidden manipulations, issuing ethical design certificates. However, effective regulation faces serious challenges. Technologies develop faster than legislation, creating a constant gap between the possibilities of influence and the mechanisms of control. The global nature of digital platforms requires international coordination, which is difficult to achieve given different cultural and legal traditions. The future of regulation likely lies in the creation of flexible, adaptive mechanisms capable of evolving alongside technologies and balancing innovation with user protection. We stand on the threshold of a new era of emotional programming. Future technologies will allow interaction with human emotions at an unprecedented level of depth. Emotional artificial intelligence will learn not just to recognize our states, but to anticipate them with an accuracy surpassing our own intuition. Neuro interfaces will create a direct channel between digital systems and our emotional centers, bypassing traditional sensory barriers. This will open up possibilities for instantaneous correction of negative states, but also create risks of direct manipulation of basic feelings. Quantum computing will allow modeling emotional states, taking into account thousands of variables, making the impact practically imperceptible to consciousness. Virtual and augmented reality will transform the nature of emotional experience. When all sensory channels are connected to digital systems, the line between genuine and programmable feelings will become almost indistinguishable. We will see the emergence of personal emotional assistants, algorithms that constantly monitor our state and subtly adjust it in the desired direction. They will be our invisible companions, knowing more about our emotional needs than we do ourselves. Systems of total emotional monitoring will be able to predict public moods and prevent collective emotional crises. All of this will require a fundamental rethinking of the concept of human autonomy. What does it mean to be oneself when your feelings can be programmed? Where does the line between support and control lie? These questions will become central to the philosophy and ethics of the coming decades. We live in a world of algorithms that have become an integral part of our existence. Emotional programming through digital platforms is not a futuristic scenario, but our everyday reality. Accepting this reality, we must find a way to coexist harmoniously with technology while preserving our humanity. The key to a conscious digital future lies in balance. Technologies offer unprecedented opportunities for growth and development, from apps that help manage anxiety to platforms that expand our empathic abilities. But these same tools can imperceptibly erode the boundaries of our emotional autonomy. Preserving authenticity in an algorithmic world requires new skills. Digital awareness, the ability to notice how technologies affect our emotional state. Information hygiene, the ability to filter the content we consume. Technological selectivity, the decision to use only those tools that align with our values and goals. The future belongs to those who learn to use algorithms, not be used by them. This means periodically stepping out of digital space to reconnect with one's own feelings. It means asking uncomfortable questions of developers and demanding transparency in influence mechanisms. It implies fostering in children not only digital literacy, but also emotional resilience. Humanity faces the task of creating a new ethics of interaction with technologies, where the concepts of consent, transparency, and respect for emotional boundaries will take center stage. Only in this way can we build a digital future that enhances our humanity rather than replacing it.